Your team different from the December game with Gonzaga?
Well, hopefully a lot. You know, watching that tape a couple of times over, I think we're a much mature basketball team than what we were there. And again, I've said that it's such a credit to our guys because we were going through, that was the start of a stretch. Gonzaga at home, Kentucky and Chicago, at Alabama, that they could have just turned the switch off. And then we got the reset button with the conference starting, and then we have to start on the road to Colorado and Utah. They could have just stopped believing again. And I think that's where them trusting in us and then trusting in one another, they've stayed at it and they've kept working. It's a young group. We've said it all along. It's a young, inexperienced group. They're going through it for the first time, and they've started to mature and get a lot better. And we've won 6 out of 7, and even in, I think, going 14-6 from that point on, you know, even the games we lost, at Arizona State, at Cal, at Arizona, those were losses for us. We were right there and played well in those. So just the maturity of the team, understanding roles, trusting one another, having only one senior playing in the rotation and having him really be a good leader and staying with it even when we were going through some tough times, I think all of that kind of has brought us to the point that we are at now.
Good. Third row, far left.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle. Steve, from the first meeting, what makes Wilcher so difficult with this combination of size and also his ability to step out and shoot the three?
Well, you said it. He's got a combination of all those things. They're just a very dangerous team. They're so efficient offensively. They don't beat themselves. They take care of the basketball. They know the shots that they want to get. They've got a lot of experience on the team. You know, Wilcher, Sabonis, Karnowski obviously get a lot of attention up front and warranted because they're big, they're talented, very skilled bigs. Wilcher can go inside out, but the 3 guards that are all seniors, you know, you got 3 senior guards. They understand the moment. They understand when runs are against them. They understand when they're in the midst of a run. And those 3 senior guards, I think, really solidify what they're able to do as a basketball team. They got a very good bench. Obviously got a ton of respect for Mark and his staff. They do a tremendous job and have done it consistently over time. So we know we've got a very, very tough matchup. This is a very good basketball team. You're about maybe 2 possessions away in the BYU game and 1 possession away in the game at Arizona to where you'd be looking at them at being undefeated just like Kentucky. That's how good this team is.
Okay, fifth row, far left.
Tom Spouse, the New York Times. How much of some of the, say, observations that UCLA shouldn't have been in the tournament feel you guys maybe gave you something to prove to this point?
Yeah, you know, there's been a lot made of that. You know, I wish there was more made of what our young men have been able to do and grow up and mature and become the team that they are, because that's the real story. You know, if you really look at it, there were 4 other teams that were last in, not UCLA. We weren't one of the 4 last into the tournament. And if you look at RPIs, you look at strength of schedule, all that validates that of the other 4 teams. So that one's hard to believe, but there was a lot made out of that. So, you know, our guys hear that. And so I think the competitor in you, obviously, that fuels what you want to do, and you want to prove people wrong maybe. So, but our message to them have always been not so much of what somebody's saying, because we've really tried to work with our guys on paying attention to the noise in the locker room, not what's out. Because that varies. You know, 2 weeks ago it was, you didn't deserve it, you didn't deserve it. Now it's a love fest. You know, so it changes, you know, and so that noise, whether it's positive or negative, can really affect you as an athlete. You've got to really stay into the moment and really keep moving forward. The story I think about this year's team at UCLA is that the number of people we lost. You know, we had 3 go hardship. We've got 5 guys, 5 of the 8 guys that were in our rotation last year are in the NBA right now. There's no other program anywhere in the country that has 5 guys from last year's team playing in the NBA and 3 that went hardship. And yet here we are back in the Sweet 16 with this young, inexperienced group. That is a tremendous credit to our young players of growing, maturing, listening, and working to become a better basketball team. And that's what I'm most pleased with. That's what I'm most proud about this team, is that how they have responded in a year which most people would say was a transitional year with everything that we lost. And yet we're one of 16 teams still playing. That's a heck of an accomplishment.
Second row on the right.
Ryan Cartier, Orange County Register. Steve, it seems like more coaches lately, just in the one and done era, are more comfortable, talking about guys who they know are going to leave after 1 year. In your case, do you feel like Kavan is still undecided on that front? And how hard is it to know if a guy is ready after just seeing him 1 year?
We obviously haven't talked about it yet. That'll be something after the year that we'll get to immediately, obviously because of his talent. I'll do whatever Kavan wants, and our staff will do what Kavan wants because he's been unbelievable. For somebody that's been on everybody's lottery board on all the pre-draft stuff, he's been so coachable. He knows he's got to keep working to get better. That's a unique, for guys that are potential 1 and 2 and dones, it's unique that you get somebody that knows they haven't arrived yet and they still got a lot of work to do, and that's Kavan. Kavan, he watches tape, he works, he's coachable. So once the season's over, we'll sit down and we'll talk to him, but it'll all be Kavan's decision and what he feels like's best for his career and what's best for his immediate family and family beyond. We'll be very, very, very supportive on whatever he wants. But I know this year, in his first year, he's been a joy to coach. He's been tremendous.
Okay, in the left, in the rear.
Brent Zorneman, Houston Chronicle. With 5 guys scoring in double digits, how much does that help offensively? And is that something you go about trying to achieve, or is that something that just happens?
Well, I think, one, we've had a very, very young bench, and so that bench has just been developing. And part of our, I think, late game stuff has been our bench has really developed. And those guys have confidence now. Noah, Gigi, Tom all have great confidence and are playing at a much higher level. We've got more trust in them. They've got more trust in themselves and teammates, so that's helped. Those 5 guys in the starting lineup, we've been in double figures. Probably those 5 have been in double figures most of the season. What's different now, I think, has been the consistency. Norman and Bryce have been pretty consistent throughout the entire year. Kavan's been very consistent around the double-double area all year long. I think the reason why we're having a little bit more success at a higher level here in the last month has been Tony Parker and Isaac Hamilton. I think those two have really proven themselves in the last month to 6 weeks. That's really helped our team. We've got an inside-outside presence. That opens things up for everybody, and Tony's had a lot to do with that. Tom coming off our bench. But Isaac has been very consistent, and not just in numbers offensively, but Isaac's been a real plus for what we've been trying to do defensively.
Okay, far right, halfway back.
Adam Spillane from Sports Radio 610 in Houston. You mentioned losing all the guys that you lost off last year's team. Does getting back to this, have you proven something as a coach?
Oh, I don't know. I've always said it's a player's game, and coaches probably you win, you get too much credit, you lose, you get way too much of the criticism too. But that's part of the profession that I'm in. More than me, more than our staff, and I do appreciate I got a big time staff. I'm very, very fortunate because my staff's as good as anybody's, and they've worked extremely hard in this season because it wasn't an easy season because of everything that we've left. This team's evolved, and that's what's made it fun. It hadn't been easy, but it's been a lot of fun. But the credit goes to the players because, like I said early in the conference, they could have quit. They could have just stopped trying, stopped doing the things that athletes do when tough times hit, and they didn't do that. We weren't very good against Kentucky. We didn't play particularly well against Gonzaga. They had a lot to do with that because of how good they were. We were really awful then against Kentucky, and so that's what everybody's image is, and the image now is vastly different. Of just the demeanor of this team and how we go about things, and that's a credit to the players. They've stuck with it. They've learned to trust, and individually they're better 3 months later, and I think collectively as a team we're better. So I give my staff a lot of credit for staying with it, not jumping ship, and now all of a sudden now we're going to be a 1-3-1 zone team and we're going to revamp the offense. We've stayed with what we believe in, and our guys have gotten better in it.
Second row, far left.
Steve Bud Withers again, Seattle Times. You're in the middle of a home-and-home series with Gonzaga. Was that set up after you got there? And not every school will do that. How did you feel about going up there to?
Yeah, I'm one of the crazy ones. I went into home-and-home with Mark. Yeah, but Mark and I have known each other a long time, and got a lot of respect for him and his program. And I think it's a great home and home. You know, we've got a home and home with Kentucky now starting, and it's something that we wanted to do was upgrade our non-conference schedule. And again, not much has been talked about that as well. Not only do we have a very young, inexperienced team, but this year's non-conference schedule was arguably the toughest non-conference schedule UCLA's had in a decade. And so our young guys are trying to compete and learn playing the likes of Gonzaga, the likes of Kentucky, of Carolina, of Oklahoma. These are all teams that we played in the non-conference. So they've had to learn by playing the best. And that's why I'm so impressed with this group of young men, because it's not like we've gotten better because we played a weak non-conference schedule. It was very, very difficult. And Gonzaga obviously is a big part of that. But on the West Coast, you look at the teams on the West Coast, Gonzaga has had a very, very consistent run over the last decade and a half of doing things at a very high level. So, you know, obviously with the tradition and history at UCLA and what we're all about, I think that's a great West Coast home and home. And we weren't able to get this one at home this year. Now we've got to play them in the national tournament. Now in the next one after that, we got to go up to Spokane. So it doesn't get any easier for us, but I do think it's a very good home and home for us.
Okay, in the center rear.
Steve, how do you make it work as being just a dad to your sons, but also head coach to your sons, and especially Bryce thrown into that starting role, and how that's worked out?
Yeah, just, you know, keep a balance, you know, really have a balance to it, you know, and I've had a lot around me. I was a coach's kid, so my father was a high school coach for a great number of years, and back then in Indiana, when it was just one class, that's when it was real high school basketball. I was glad I grew up in that era. But you could only play Friday and Saturday. You couldn't play on Sunday, you couldn't practice on Sunday. So it was, I can always remember, you know, it was kind of coach for 6 days, and then Dad would take, you know, my brother and I up to the gym on Sundays, and he was Dad. And, you know, so I've tried doing a little bit of that. It's a little different at the college level because we play all over the map. We play every day of the week. But Sundays a lot, once we get into league play, can present that. So Corey and Bryce will come out, we'll have church, we'll have lunch, and then I'm able to be dad a little bit more than just coach. And then on my off time, you know, we don't get a lot of off time, but I always make sure that I give it, you're always critiquing tape as a coach. So a lot of times I'll critique a game film as a coach, and then I'll go back and make sure I do critique it as a dad, and because you want to make sure you live in that moment and have fun with it. It's an incredible blessing, and to have Corey and Bryce on the team, and you know, Corey's been a part of 4 years now. He's been a part of 4 NCAA tournaments. He's been a part of 2 Sweet 16s. He's been a part of 3 league tournament titles, 2 league championships, and now Bryce in 2 years has been part of a league tournament championship and 2 Sweet 16s. That's fun, you know. And so just like all other college kids I've taught and coached, part of the journey is making sure you enjoy it and have fun. So the last thing I want to do is now have my own children on the team and not them enjoy it and not me enjoy it. So I've been very blessed. It's been an incredible experience and ride to date, and hopefully it's just going to keep getting better. But I think finding that balance of when you're dad, most of the time you're coach, but making sure you're still dad as well.
Anything else for Coach? Okay, this will be the last question right here.
Jerome Solomon from the Houston Chronicle. Coach, you mentioned the noise and not listening to the outside noise, but the noise in the locker room. What is that noise in the locker room from such a tough season and being doubted to, like you say, being celebrated for an accomplishment with games still left?
A lot of it, like what you just said, being a tough season, we've never viewed it as a tough season. We thought it was successful. You know, it might not be the success everybody was wanting, you know, whether it be Westwood, Los Angeles, nationally, you know, UCLA is about national championships. It's about that. We get that. We understand that. But the fact is still the fact. There's only one program in the country that lost 3 to hardship. There's only one program in the country that put 5 guys in the NBA. That's UCLA. So when you lose all that, you can't say, well, this team does it too. No. There's only one. There's only one team that did that. And so when you lose all that, it takes some time. And for these young men to keep battling, we got 1 senior in the rotation. We got 1 junior in the rotation. Everybody else is in their first year. We've got a sophomore that's really, 2 sophomores. Really, you look at Noah Allen, who was hurt all of last year, and Isaac Hamilton, who lost a year of eligibility. Those are 2 of our sophomores. They're really freshmen. You know, so we're doing it pretty much with 5 freshmen when you add Gigi and Thomas and Kavan. So of our 8-man rotation, 5 of them are legitimately freshmen, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. That's going to take some time. So part of our noise in the locker room, it's not as bad as what people are saying. It's, we believe in you as coaches. This is part of the journey. You got to stay with it. You got to keep believing. You got to keep working every day and believe in the system, believe in one another. And it's taken them a while to learn that trust within the team. And I think that's why from about February on, they've played very, very good basketball. Even in some tough losses, we've played really good basketball since about the 1st of February. And we know when we get to this point of the season, we got to play even better basketball, because playing the likes of Gonzaga, you can't play average and think you're going to win. You've got to be on point, and we know we've got to play a really good game tomorrow. We're going to have to put together 40 really high-quality minutes.
I'll talk about what the team and maybe you individually learned from the first meeting with Gonzaga.
Norman, why don't you start? Then we'll go to Bryce.
We know that they're a good team. You know, they got a lot of guys who can shoot the ball and can score, especially coming off their bench. Their starting 5 has done a great job all year, establishing inside and outside presence. So it's going to be us having to guard them and taking away their 3.
Yeah, like he said, they're very talented, especially inside. They have a lot of depth with big men. And we got to be able to stop them from scoring in the paint, and then we got to stop them from 3-ball too, because they make a lot of threes.
Rear on the left.
Brent Zorneman, Houston Chronicle. Norman, what has been the key to y'all's balanced scoring with 5 guys in double figures this year?
I think we've done a great job sharing the ball. You know, once we're able to establish inside presence in the paint with Tony and Kavan, the ball just seems to move on the perimeter because guys have to double Tony, so it opens up lanes for us to drive and gives opportunity for Bryce and Eisen knock down their outside shots. They're great catch and shoot 3-point shooters. So it's been able to have a balance of the inside out. You know, when we're able to do that, the ball seems to move around and we seem to have a good balance and flow to our offense.
Next question. We go second row.
Joshua Cook with Houston Community Newspapers. Bryce, the talk at the beginning of the tournament was UCLA doesn't deserve to be here. Now it's a love fest for UCLA. That's what Coach Alford said. What has it been like for y'all as players to go through this for the last 2 weeks?
We tried to ignore it, you know. The outside voices don't really matter in the end. We try to keep it all within our locker room, listen to what's going on in our locker room and focus on that, because at the end of the day, that's what goes out and plays the game. The outside voices don't make any difference on the game. So we try to just focus everything on the locker room. And at the end of the day, you know, we're still getting doubted, even though we're in the Sweet 16. We're picked as the 16th best team here. So we know that's still in the back of our head, so we still got some more motivation.
Next question. Here we go.
For both of you, but Bryce first, is playing in a venue like this, a shoot-around, extra important? And what do you think of playing a game in a stadium like this?
It's cool. You know, you get to go out there and you see how big the stadium is. The scoreboard's huge. The court's elevated. All this stuff. It's what you dream of when you're a kid playing in a venue like this. And you know, it's hard. You got to get used to the shooting. It's definitely different, but they've done a great job of, I think, making the background darker. And you know, there's black behind both hoops, so I don't think it'll be too much different than shooting in a normal gym.
Yeah, the setup for this is great. You know, I had a chance to play here my sophomore year against Texas, so have a chance to be able to shoot in here, so I know what it's like. But the setup of this is great. Like Bryce said, the court's elevated. You know, it's something that you dreamed of, especially being here in the Sweet 16. So it's going to be fun.
Questions? Center of the room, third row.
Bryce, your dad talked about having kind of the balance between being your coach and being your dad, and how he tries to take time to enjoy it. Do you think about it in that way too? Yeah, you know, you get to a spot like this, you got to try to enjoy it a little bit. This isn't something that a lot of people get to have, the opportunity to be in the Sweet 16 and be on the same team as your brother, be on the same team as your dad and stuff like that. So you have to enjoy it, and not only enjoy it with those two, but enjoy it with these guys on my team. You know, my teammates are brothers to me as well. So it's a family affair, not only with us three, but the whole team.
Second row.
Joshua Cook with Houston Community Newspapers again. For both of y'all, was there a moment this season where it felt like it clicked? I think Coach Oliver said after February 1st, it seemed like y'all were playing really, really good basketball. Was there a moment when y'all felt like everything came together?
Norman, why don't you start?
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the conference, when we had a home streak and we got, I think after the Stanford game is when things started to click after the double overtime team. We started to focus in on defense and letting the defense control our offense and get out in transition. And when we were able to make teams take tough shots and limit them to one shot and be able to get easy scores in transition, the things start to click for us. And I think the team did a great job of focusing on that in practice and really knowing and learning the positions and where to be on defense and increasing our IQ of that.
Yeah, like you said, after that Stanford game, I'd have to agree. We won that game after losing 5 straight, and then we come back home and win a tough game against a team that was hot. And after that, we kind of ran with it. We had some tough losses here and there, but we really started to have a sense of urgency to the way we played.
Questions? Here we go. On the left.
Norman, as the senior leader, when y'all are in the midst of a 5-game losing streak, how do you keep it together? How do you keep encouraging the guys and saying, that things can get better?
Keep telling them to believe. I've been able to experience everything throughout my 4 years here. Tough freshman year, a better sophomore year, and a Sweet 16 experience my junior year. So I've been able to see the up and downs and the ebb and flow of college basketball. So it's just keeping the guys motivated, keeping them believing in the system and believing in one another and what they can do. A lot of these guys are experiencing this for the first time. So being college, they're all used to winning at their high school. So it's just keeping them motivated and believing in the system and believing the outcome of what coach is saying is possibly true. So the guys have done a great job with that. They made it a lot easy because they've been always hungry to work throughout the 5-game losing streak. And in practice, they're always willing to learn and wanting to get better. So when you have guys like that, it's really easy to keep them motivated on the task at hand.